AFDA. Today we are going to learn absolute value equations. So if you take a look at the notes, absolute value is the distance from 0. The reason it's negative is because the distance can't be negative. So if we see an equation like this, x is equal to 3, you can write it two different ways. X is equal to 3 or x is equal to negative 3. Because if you look at this number line, if we're here at 0, and we go 3 units to the right, our distance is going to be in units of 3. Okay? Now, if you go to the left as well in the negative direction, 1, 2, 3, negative 3 is also units of 3. So the distance from 0 to 3 is 3. The distance from 0 to negative 3 is also 3. So that's sort of a visual model of what the absolute value of x equals 3 is going to look like. Notice it wasn't the x that we made positive or negative. It was the 3. Now moving on down here, it says the absolute value of x equals negative 5. Well, that can't happen since this negative 5 is what's representing the distance, and distance can't be negative. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for the variable. This is going to be much like the IXL you're going to be doing after we go over these notes. A couple of things with our directions up at the top. Make sure to isolate the absolute value on the left first. So before you set it equal to the positive and negative distance. Then everything inside the absolute value will stay the same. Meaning this x plus 2 is going to stay the same. This w minus 4 is going to stay the same. Nothing inside of the absolute value is going to change. Okay? While the number on the outside is written as both a positive and, again, as a negative. Kind of like this. Positive 3 and negative 3. So let's take a look at number 1. The absolute value of x plus 2 is already isolated. It equals 3. So we're going to write two different equations. X plus 2 equals 3 or x plus 2 equals negative 3. Notice that the x plus 2 didn't change. The only thing that changed was the distance. 3 is the distance, so what's the distance going forward and the distance going back, much like what we did right up here. So to solve for x, you subtract 2 from both sides and find out that x is equal to 1 because 3 minus 2 is 1. And over here, you're going to subtract 2 from both sides and find out that x is equal to negative 5, because negative 3 minus 2 is 5. So those are the two values. Now on IXL, it's going to ask you to plot your points. So just at negative 5, you're going to put a circle, because that's one of the values, and at positive 1, you're going to put a circle, and that's another value. Now in our notes here, we're not going to do graph every time, because really you're just putting dots at the values. I think you can do that. All right, taking a look at number 2. If you want to try it on your own, go ahead and hit pause and give it a shot. All right, number 2. The absolute value is already isolated. 2 is the distance that we're going to make positive and negative. Now remember, stuff inside the absolute value we don't change. Even though that's a negative 4, it's okay. You're going to write w minus 4 equals 2. And w minus 4 equals negative 2. Positive and negative distance to the right and to the left. So you add 4 to both sides. W equals 6. Add 4 to both sides. W equals 2. So our two answers are 6 and 2. Now I wanted to show you a problem like number 3, just because it was written in the opposite order. So 4 equals the absolute value of c minus 5. Now I did say, make sure to isolate the absolute value on the left first. It's okay that it's on the right, as long as it's isolated. There's nothing else outside of the absolute value on this side. So it's okay that it's written backwards. So if you want to switch it around to write it the way that you looked at with number 1 and 2, that's perfectly fine as well. You just switch the order. Nothing would change. They're both still equal to each other. I'm going to keep it the same, just so that we can see the difference and how the answers turn out just like all the rest of them. So this is my distance. So that's the positive 4 equals c minus 5. And then I have to change that to a negative 4 equals c minus 5. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. 4 plus 5 is 9. Negative 4 plus 5 is 1. So my two answers for C are 1 and 9. Okay? Now, number 4, we have something different. If you notice over here, there's a 6 outside of the absolute value. We can't have that when we're solving the equations. 6 is not our true distance. First, we have to move this 6 over to the other side. Now notice this 6 is being multiplied. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So the very first thing you have to do is divide both sides by 6. These 6 cancel, leaving you with the absolute value of x minus 2 is equal to 6 over 6, which equals 1. Now we're all set to go ahead and do our positive and negative distance. Our distance is right here of 1. So we'll have a y minus 2 equals a positive 1, and a y minus 2 equals a negative 1. You're going to want to add 2 to both sides. Y is equal to 3. Add 2 to both sides. Y is equal to 1. So your answers for number 4 are 3 and 1. All right, so let's take a look at number 5. Number 5, we have a lot of things outside of the equal sign. We're going to solve this problem as though it just looked like 5x minus 3 equals 7. If you had an equation like that, the very first thing you would do is add the 3. Then you would divide by 5. We're going to do the exact same thing to isolate that absolute value. So the first step is to add the 3 to both sides. So 5 times the absolute value of x plus 2 is equal to 7 plus 3, which is 10. Okay? Now we want to move that 5, so just like we did with number 4, we're going to divide both sides by 5. We end up with x plus 2 is equal to 10 divided by 5, which is 2. Now we can do like we did with numbers 1, 2, and 3. So here's our distance. We can say that x plus 2 is equal to a positive 2, and x plus 2 is equal to a negative 2. To solve for x, I subtract 2 from both sides. So x equals 0, and x equals negative 4. Number 6 is done a very similar way. So go ahead and push pause, and go ahead and try number 6 on your own. All right, so for number 6, first, you have to realize that while it's equal to a negative 11, it's not just the absolute value. You've got all these numbers we need to move first. So you subtract your 5 first. You get negative 2. The absolute value of x minus 1 is equal to a negative 16. Negative 11 minus 5 is negative 16. Divide both sides by negative 2. The absolute value of x minus 1 is equal to a positive 8. Now notice that in the beginning it started with a negative after the equal sign, but once we solved it down to the absolute value and the equal of the number was a positive 8. That's our distance. So we're okay. We can solve this problem. We have x minus 1 equals positive 8, and x minus 1 equals negative 8. Add 1 to both sides. X is equal to 9. Add 1 to both sides, and x is equal to negative 7. All right, so you are now ready to go ahead and start your IXL. Your IXL is going to be in Algebra 2, and it's going to be B.5. So Algebra 2, B.5. Go ahead and get that up to 80%. If you run into a problem or you're having trouble with a certain kind of problem, please email and ask so that I can show you what to do and help you. All right, have a great day.